Welcome to the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum, Night 1. My name is Brittany Sherman. I'm CEO President for the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. Along with me tonight, I will have Chamber Board Director, Government Relations Center Chair, and Cross Currents LLC owner, Lee Neves. All questions asked to the candidates this evening were based on topics that ranked of high importance on survey results from the business community. Questions from attendees will not be addressed to candidates at this time. Tonight's webinar is being recorded and live streamed on Facebook Live and on the Chamber Facebook page. The timeline for this evening is as follows. 6 to 6:30, we'll be joined by Rene Spring and Juan Miguel Munoz Morris, candidates for the City of Morgan Hill Councilmember District C. From 6:45 to 6:55, we will hear statements from the Morgan Hill Mayor, Rich Constantine, and Morgan Hill Treasurer, Caitlin Yakermowitz. From 7 to 7:30, we'll be joined by Alex Kennett and Robert Howell, candidates for the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority District 1. Okay, well, we still don't have Lee, so I was going to say without further ado, I'll hand it over to him, but I'm just going to keep it now. So we'll go ahead and move forward. Question 1 will be for each of you. Rene, I'd like to ask you to please answer first. How do you see the role of a city council member, and what are your qualifications for filling that role? You'll have 3 minutes.
Well, the role I see is what I've played for the past 3.5 years. I am a very engaged council member, very responsive. I'm out in the community all the time. I've come to many chamber events, many chamber breakfasts as well, just to network with the community of the chamber members. My qualification, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I work full-time as director of program management for a global software company. I have been living in Morgan Hill for over 16 years now. I'm married, have 3 stepchildren and 3 wonderful grandkids and 4 cats. That all entitles me to be really a resident of Morgan Hill, where we have a lot of animal lovers. I'm also a commissioner of the Veterans Commission of Santa Clara County, and then bringing in the strong voice for our veterans that live here in South County. As a council member, I really feel my role as someone who is out there in the community, who's a voice for people who, prior to my election, felt they weren't heard and listened to all the time. And they encouraged me, I think back in 2013 already, to run for city council. I declined, and until 2016, when I gave it a try for a first term. In 2012, I went through a Leadership Morgan Hill program, became a board member of Leadership Morgan Hill, and then also its president, was on that board for almost 4 years. Also became a board member of the Morgan Hill Community Foundation and its president, and was on that board for 4 years. And since 2012, actually, also have been a planning commission in the city of Morgan Hill. And so I had been planning commissioner as well for over 4 years. I think that gave me a good foundation to become a city council member. I had a great network. I knew a lot of people, and now I know even more. But I brought in the experience that I think is needed. If you're not out in the community, it's hard to really understand what our residents think and what top topics are that they care about. I'm also a very independent person. I'm not part of any of those networks that are floating around in the city. Some call them the good old boys network or so. I've always been very independent, and even on the council, quite often I'm the swing vote. And I think that's an important role I play. I'm very approachable. I say what I think, and when you meet me privately, I'm very easygoing, fun guy. And had one goal during those 4 years. I always said and promised my family and friends, I don't want to change, as many people that go into politics do. And I think I passed the test. I asked my friends and my husband, Mark, and they said, no, I don't think you have changed. So that's pretty much it up.
Thank you, Rene. Okay, same question to you, Juan.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me just start by saying thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event. I think it's wonderful to have the opportunity to speak to the members of the community that are hopefully listening in today. I see the role of the council member really at its basic core, it comes down to three tenets to me, and those are the tenets of life, liberty, and property. I think local leadership is about making sure that our community is safe. It's also making sure that people can live freely in that community, and they can take ownership, not just of property, but also of themselves and their well-being. And that's what I see a council member's role as being, protecting those three tenets. Some of the ways in which I think local leadership can do that is to have clear, forward-thinking strategies and be consistent in its messaging, as well as carry through with actions and not just words on the topics that you discussed. As far as my qualifications, I think that a career as a contracting professional for the County of Santa Clara and another county previously, combined with my experience on the Planning Commission currently for Morgan Hill, has really provided me a wealth of education as far as how public funds are managed, how they're expended, and what you can, but more importantly, what you cannot do with those funds. And my experience on the Planning Commission has given me a crash course as to what are the local issues that matter most to our community. I've had the chance to speak with many of them in person, and obviously growth and development and the traffic that comes with that is probably #1 issue in our community, and I'm very aware of that. And I feel that the Commission has provided a great training ground for me to have a very thorough understanding as to what's to come with the new state laws. I'm obviously, I'm the outsider in this campaign, so it's important for people to get to know me. And I think that when they get to know me, they see that I mean what I say, and that I can stand proudly behind my track record as commissioner and also as a county employee. And that although I don't have a lot of endorsements, I have 2 key endorsements that I think people ought to consider. And those are the endorsement of former Mayor Steve Tate and the Morgan Hill Police Officers Association. I think both former mayor, one of the most trusted and beloved mayors in Morgan Hill history, I would say, and the Police Officers Association understand that I have a clear plan for how to move us forward. They understand that the old ways of doing things may not work in this new world that we're living in, and that my passion is going to drive me to always have exemplary community service and serve our community in the best way possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. See, moving on to our next question. Rene, this is for you. Given the fact that our city has a multi-million-dollar deficit and we are in the middle of a pandemic-induced recession, what is your suggestion to stem the bleeding? What is your stance on bringing back the cannabis question to City Council?
The what? Bring back what? I'm sorry.
The question of cannabis back to City Council?
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
Well, let me start. I was one of the votes that approved our budget that we had to by the end of June, which included a lot of cuts of programs and services near and dear to many of us. But it was the right thing to do. We tried to prevent layoffs, and so far we're handling that quite well. But I'm an optimist. I always say that I think we'll go through a V-shaped cycle. Some people now call it a slim U-shape. So we'll see what it will be. But we'll have to really keep monitoring our city finance and see where it goes. With regards to dispensaries and test labs and so on, I was the one council member that actually proposed that early on. That we look into that and had several workshops, and up to this day I'm in favor of having a limited amount of this, cannabis dispensaries in our city. I think it was a missed opportunity by the council majority not to approve that. I understand there's concerns, but if you go and look at the dispensaries, they're among the safest businesses you can have. And actually I know of at least 3 business folks here in town. They live in Morgan Hill and they would be very willing to open up a cannabis dispensary in town. I think there also would be room for test labs and so on. While we have a lot of businesses struggling, not all businesses are struggling. We're actually having businesses that are doing very well. The tech industry is doing well. And many of us do work in that industry. It's almost as if we have 2 economies. We have the economies of the smaller businesses and restaurants and so on. And then the other economy, the restaurants, smaller businesses do struggle, and I see that, and I know that, and that includes all the workers that got laid off or can't work these days. But there's another aspect in the other half of the economy of the tech workers and tech companies and biotech companies. They all are doing really, really well. So not everything is gloom and doom, and we just need to make sure with creative ideas and cutting red tape that we get through this time. I've been very supportive of having businesses, not just downtown, but across our city, encroaching into a public space so that they can provide services outdoors. I'd be open for even closing down downtown on weekends if our business community would want that. So far, they haven't really asked for that. So I just want to make that clear as well. I don't think they all agree with the same ideas, even our downtown businesses. But we have been helping as a city as much as we can. I personally even signed a petition from the chamber early on that asked and called for the state and county to open up our businesses early and safely. I still believe that would be the right thing to do. It's just mind-boggling. Some of the rules are mind-boggling when you can go to the dentist, but you can't get your hair cut. Not that I have a need for that, but still.
Well, thank you, Rene. Lee, I believe you have the next question.
I do. This question's for Juan. And Juan, given your endorsement by the Morgan Hill Police Officers Association, I'm going to go on a limb and say I know what your answer is going to be, but it's on the list. So question number, sorry, that was going to be a later question for you, Juan. Sorry. Juan, question number 3, what ideas do you have to assist businesses in recovering from the pandemic?
Great. Well, thank you for the question, Lee. I think it's fair to say that the pandemic and the subsequent shutdowns have been a tremendous stress test for our city and our community as a whole. And although some industries were a little bit luckier or better suited to adapt to the new conditions, others have not. So there's been, a lot of companies that have been in town for a very long time who have had to close down. We see some closed shops, when you walk around the neighborhood, that you can certainly see the impact of the shutdown out there. I was lucky early on to be invited by some of the city leadership, including the economic development director and some of the council. I believe it was council member Larry Carr who authored the initial draft of the economic recovery strategy that ultimately became the city's recovery strategy. And in it, I provided some feedback for the team around areas that could, things that we could do to basically help these businesses. Obviously, we could take all the steps that we did to find additional space for seating areas for tables for our restaurants, or, work with private owners of, say, strip malls and other areas so that we can use parking space for retail operations so that businesses can kind of operate outdoors and continue to keep their doors open. But a lot of it, the landscape has been changing too quickly. And I think a lot of our businesses have struggled to keep up with the different demands and what it all means, and, state versus county regulations and which ones do I follow. I think there was an opportunity, and there's still an opportunity for our local leaders to have a clear, consistent message for our business owners in our community so that they fully understand not just what is expected of them in this new business frontier that we're all dealing with, but also understand how the city is a resource to them and in which areas the city just needs to get out of the way and let business owners do what they do best, which is manage their businesses. Although I was happy to see the response that the city has had, I think there's an opportunity for us to be a louder voice at the table when the county's making decisions around criteria for these guidelines, make sure that we fully understand them, and make sure that we are communicating those effectively to our community so that they know what to expect. They know what the businesses in our community are asked to do, and they can prepare as they plan their trips around town.
Great. Thank you, Juan. Lee, I believe the next question is yours as well.
Oh, yes, it is. Rene, my question for you is, you have publicly endorsed Proposition 15. Given that Proposition 15 is seen by many to have a detrimental effect to small businesses, how do you balance your being in favor of Prop 15 with being an advocate for small business in Morgan Hill?
Well, you probably know as well that the small businesses are excluded from that proposition, and it's clearly stated in that proposition. So I'm not concerned about that itself. I am in favor of, we need more money for our communities and schools, and it has to come from somewhere. And if not from the individual, then it has to come from the corporations that really benefit. Now, do I like the timing of Prop 15? No, I think it's wrong. I wish it wouldn't be now, and I have no doubt that this proposition will fail. So even if I were against it, I wouldn't be concerned. But yes, I have endorsed it. I believe it is a right approach. I'm not as concerned as others that it will then encroach beyond what they're proposing. They listened last year, they improved the proposition, and I think that was the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question we have is going to be for Juan. I think Lee kind of prepped us for this one, but what stance do you take? What stance do you take on defunding or reallocating funds of the Morgan Hill Police Department?
Thank you for the question. My stance, as Lee kind of hinted at, based on my endorsement, is that currently our police budget is already, in my opinion, as bare bones as we can get it. I think our police department, as well as our fire teams, have done an excellent job at being as effective as possible when it comes to funds. And as it stands, I believe we're already understaffed for our public safety, so I'm not in favor of cutting any additional funds from the police budget. I will say this, though. I think that the calls that we hear to defund the police strike me as a very valiant effort with an issue of branding. So I don't think anybody is really calling to get rid of our police departments. I think what people are asking for, which I completely agree with, is that we need better responses to less critical incidents that might not require a gun and a badge to show up, as a way to de-escalate some situations before anything even happens. I think our police force is our greatest and best ally for that effort. I think our police officers don't want to be necessarily the first responders to a domestic violence incident or a drug overdose if somebody better equipped to handle that emergency can do that for them. Unfortunately, though, given the way things are set up, we do ask a lot of our police. And because we're asking so much of them currently, I am not in favor of taking away any more resources from them. I will continue to call for transparency and accountability. The Police Officers Association knows firsthand from me that I am dedicated and committed to exemplary service from them as well as from myself, and that nothing but the best really will do for Morgan Hill, especially now that I have a baby girl. You know, I want the best community for her to grow up in, and I'm not willing to take any chances there. I think there are some legislations and some actions we can take locally to realize more funds, both to address the mental health and homelessness issues that we have in our community, as well as keep the police fully funded, make sure that they have the training and resources they need, both on the front end and also on the back end of their interactions with our community.
Thank you, Juan. I believe Lee has the next question.
I do, and I believe this question is for Councilmember Spring. Communication between the city and county has been expanded and stressed since the shelter in place. How would you, as a council member, balance your role as a representative of the Morgan Hill residential community, a business advocate, and a representative of the city during times when the best positions for each of these sectors could vary drastically?
Yeah, none of us saw COVID-19 coming, right? I work for a global company, and actually I had teams in Beijing and Shanghai reporting issues with the virus, actually back in January already. And I remember in early March, I canceled a trip. I was supposed to go to Delhi to visit our team in India. So some of us have known about this virus coming and coming fast, and even in Europe, it was just coming fast. But here we really slacked, and I think it started on national level and even on state level, as fast as they tried to react, I think they missed the opportunity. The signs were there that if they would have closed down much earlier, we could have prevented a lot of damage. Now, no one had any plans in place on how to best deal with it. I mean, the chaos just around the PPE and the hospitals and just understanding what is really happening, how severe is this virus, how does it get transmitted and so on. It took people time to learn about it, and the science was just not there initially. That helped. Now with the confusing messages coming on national level from the CDC up to this day, every other day the message is different. And then of course the city doesn't have its own health department, health director. We really look at the county for guidance. And the county and state were at odds at times. You might remember when the ABC guys came and shut down Ladera and so on. Whereas a city, we thought we were doing the right thing and legally and advised our businesses correctly. There were teams on state level that thought differently, and even the county was at loss. And there are folks working for that county. I'm sorry, they just don't have common sense. Sometimes we have way too many cooks helping here, and too many bureaucrats and contractors, and I don't know who is involved there, but it's very hard to get clear information. Up to this day, we try to clarification almost every week. What does this mean? Are those tiers and the rules? And it's very hard to get specific answers. That really needs primarily to come from the county and from the state. And as a city, we have to convey that in a way that makes sense and that people understand. And that's a challenge. And I think as a city with many town halls and social media distribution, they tried hard to do that in a way, but that's not an exercise you can do in a perfect way. And I think once this is over, all of us will go back and do a postmortem to understand what can we do to improve. And I agree if people were confused, so was I.
Thank you. All right, next question up is for Juan. As it relates to economic development, what is your opinion on commercial building in Morgan Hill? What is your opinion specifically on fulfillment centers and last mile distribution here?
What great timing for this question, given the fact that the Planning Commission is holding a workshop, and later tonight at 7 we'll be discussing this item. So with that in mind, I'll be mindful of what I say, because I don't want to preempt myself from voting later on. I will say this about just growth in general in our town. Overall growth is a good indicator that we're doing things right. The fact that people want to come live and do business in Morgan Hill is a sign that our community is vibrant, that we're thriving, that we're doing well, and that we are a place where people want to be. That's a good thing. What's important, particularly when it comes to our commercial and our industrial lands, is to protect the right mix of land uses so that we don't end up with an all residential community, or too much industrial, too much commercial. I think currently, as a nation, really, we are overbuilt for retail. That is in part because of construction boom several years ago, combined with the move towards e-commerce and things kind of going online for shopping. So that's brought on the advent of a lot of need for distribution centers, fulfillment centers, et cetera. I think there's a place for them. I don't think Morgan Hill is a place for a large distribution center. And I think that there are some policies that we can and we are going to be looking at to ensure that we attract the right businesses in town. Do we want our industrial lands to be developed? Absolutely. Do we want them to be developed with the right, by the right employers to bring the right kinds of job with, with the right salary ranges and education levels, et cetera? Of course we do. So we need to revisit our use definitions for zoning. We need to update everything. They might be outdated. I know our warehousing and distribution definitions are outdated. We need to look at those. We need to look at floor area ratios and max square footage and a couple other ratios to ensure that the right businesses come, that businesses that are in town who may have a component of distribution to their manufacturing, to whatever it is that they're doing as their main business, can continue to expand and do well and build a larger facility if they need it, but that we're not bringing in these low-paying jobs in a warehouse that are most likely going to be lost to automation very, very soon, just because of the nature of that industry. So I am in favor of protecting our industrial lands. I'm in favor of protecting them for the right uses and working with our economic development team to bring the right people to town. And I will continue to put policies in place that ensure that.
Thank you, Juan. I believe Lee has the final question for you both.
I do, so this will be a two-parter, and we'll go with Juan first. Juan, give 3 reasons why the incumbent should not be reelected, and Rene, after Juan is done, you will have a minute to rebut his 3 points.
All right, so I guess we've reached the gloves are off part of the forum. So thank you, Lee, for that question.
We have reached the pay-per-view portion of this forum.
That's right. That's right. Well, I've said from the beginning to the people that I've been speaking to that I'm not looking to run a dirty campaign. So I'm not here to tell you a bunch of bad things about Mr. Spring, because he's a great member of our community. I've had the pleasure of knowing him now for a few years. I've met his husband. They're extremely active in the community. I have a lot of good things to say about Mr. Spring, the person. I just feel that as a council member, at times his actions have not matched his words, and it's that lack of consistency that I have found troubling. And I feel like we need to be very clear about how we intend to move forward. And as a leader, you need to stand by your words. So my concerns with council member, with the incumbent, are the consistency in his actions or his words versus his votes. I'm a little bit concerned at how often he seems to be the outside vote on a 401 decision, which to me seems to indicate that perhaps our council, and by extension our city, seem to be wanting to go in a different direction than the one he's proposing. But it also indicates to me that in the areas where he's felt strongly and against the majority vote, he has been unsuccessful at rallying the votes to get the additional 2 votes that he needed on a 5-person council to get policies passed and implemented. I want District C to have the best representative possible. And I want that representative to be somebody that the community can trust and that has a clear plan and can communicate that to our residents and our neighbors, so that they understand what is that the city is doing, which direction we're moving in, and they can be an active member in that conversation. And
Councilmember Spring, your rebuttal.
Yeah, I agree with Juan Miguel. I have no intention to badmouth him. So I didn't run an ugly campaign 4 years ago. I won't do it now. He lives close by. He has a beautiful family. His wife loves animals too, I learned. So we have a lot in common. And he's a resident of the district, and I highly respect all the residents of our district. I was a challenger myself 4 years ago, so I don't hold grudges. If someone challenges an incumbent, that would be hypocritical. Juan hasn't lived in Morgan Hill yet. When I was a planning commission, and when we went to the general plan updates and all those heated and intensive discussions, and over as a planning commission, I was in the minority, and I said, slow down. The former mayor and others back then initially, they wanted to have the city to grow up to 75,000 residents at a time. I'm not making that up. And then slowly they decreased because of the pressure from me and the community and people that thought alike. I proposed over and over, we should not grow more than 1% as Morgan Hill. I still think that's a reasonable number. But in years past, when the former mayor and Larry Carr and others were in charge, Morgan Hill grew 3 to 5% per year, every year, year over year. So even with an RDCS in place, they did not manage it well, and it just grew. And you can ask a lot of residents in this town, just grew much faster than needed. I have been a firm proponent of slower growth. Even Juan attacked me recently saying I voted against Measure S. Yes, I did, because I thought that it allowed for too much growth. If you would have been in Morgan Hill during that campaign, you would know about that. But you weren't here, so you missed a lot of those interesting and heated discussions we had 4 years ago. Now we're repeating the same folks that tried to prevent me from becoming a council member. They desperately try now to get that third vote because that's what you need, as Juan mentioned, to win. Different candidates, same strategy, but they will not succeed. The people of Morgan Hill, ever since I knew I would have a challenge, have strongly stood up and asked me and approached me, how can I help you? How can I stand with you? Let's make sure it's not going to happen. So I'm proud of the many individuals that endorsed me from Morgan Hill and all of South County. It's almost as a grassroots campaign, yet all over again, showing the establishment, hey, you know what? We still need Rene's voice and his strong voice. And yes, often I'm a minority. I don't have a problem with that. It would not be natural if all 5 of us always would vote the same way.
Thank you.
I want to thank you both very much for taking the time to be with us today and share your experiences and your vision for the city with everyone, all the attendees and the Facebook followers we have on there as well. We will take a short break now, and we will come back at exactly 6:45 with statements from the Morgan Hill Mayor and the Morgan Hill Treasurer. Thank you.